Yes guys, welcome back to the TIFC YouTube channel. I'm Coach Indy. We're on episode 24 of the Premier League Appetiser Show. On today's episode we'll be talking all things game week 23, and obviously there's one absolutely mouth-watering game at the top of the table which we'll dive into a little bit later on. Talk about the permutations, what does it mean for the league table, etc, etc. Then we'll have a little quick preview of game week 24, and again there is another mouth-watering game in terms of heavyweight managers and clubs, which again we'll touch on later on. We'll touch on Indy versus the rest of the world, in which we have another guest on, another player who's actually made an appearance already this season, but I'll explain the reasons behind that in a little while, and then we'll also move on to some other news. And in actual fact, that's where we're going to be starting. However, before we do that, I need you all to hit the subscribe button, leave a like, leave a comment, saying what you like about the video, was it insightful, and do you want to see more of this video. So the first thing we'll talk about in other news is the women's game actually. In actual fact, we'll talk about Chelsea in particular. Now their women's team have been on a massive unbeaten run, and that's come to an end. They lost a 33 game unbeaten run in the WSL, just the WSL alone. Lost to Brighton the other day on Sunday. On the same day Manchester United lost as well, who were obviously fighting for the title as well. So their run has come to an end, which was, I found quite interesting. Manchester United played beforehand, they lost home to Reading, and then Chelsea after that ended up losing as well, which maybe that sometimes happens in a title race. So that sort of made the news. Going to talk about more racial stuff, guys, because it's the more we talk about it, the more the news spreads, and the more awareness it gets out to people. So Twins AB has been racially abused online on the back of his brief appearance against Everton. I think it's because United winning the game 3-2. He comes on, we can see later on. It's obviously not his fault, but he's been targeted as a bit of a scapegoat. Antonio Rudiger, likewise, scored an own goal in the game against Sheffield United. Could have cost Chelsea some points. He's been racially abused as well. And then also one of the girls for Man United women's team, Lauren James, she's also been racially abused as well. However, she's come out and sort of given her stance on that. Don't know exactly what the stance was, guys, so have to have a look online yourself. But she's come out with a lot of credit, I would suggest. Now, on the back of that, the government has come out and said there will be law changes for social media companies to be more accountable for the online abuse. That is by Oliver Dowden. Some of you guys would have heard of him, which is really, I wouldn't say it's positive. It is positive news, but it's sort of a long time coming in my opinion. However, it's a step in the right direction. Just going to move on to some stuff about the teams that are playing in Europe, because obviously that kicks off in the next sort of week to 10 days or so. Liverpool's Champions League tie against RB Leipzig and Manchester City's tie against Borussia Mönchengladbach. Both their away ties have been, obviously they're playing teams in Germany, so Germany aren't allowing Liverpool or Manchester City, should I say, teams from England into their country, so their tie has been moved to the Puskás Arena in Budapest. Chelsea's tie against Atletico, that's been moved to Bucharest. Manchester United's tie away from home has been moved to Turin, and Arsenal's tie, both their legs actually, we played at neutral grounds, which yet to be decided. So the only team at the moment that seems to be playing, I'm not sure Leicester are playing in the next round. That seems like that's the only team, along with Spurs actually, where the games have been changed, but that still might change going forward. So lots of sort of different arrangements for the clubs to organise over the next sort of, well, I'm sure they would have been planning beforehand, but if, to lock everything in place and know where they're staying hotel-wise, preparation, flights, all that kind of thing. Zlatan Ibrahimovic, I'm sure everybody would have heard of him, the Swedish GOAT. He has surpassed 500 league goals in his career. He obviously has been around the whole of Europe, in America, been quite a journeyman, but has been successful everywhere he's been. So yeah, he's surpassed, I think he's got 501 goals now. He scored a brace the weekend for AC Milan, so just what a glittering career he's had, not just in terms of winning trophies, but obviously he's goal scorer in this sense. Souček for West Ham, he obviously got a red card against Fulham. It was an outrageous decision, but I'm sure there would be some sort of technicality in the laws that say he had to be sent off, which I'm sure Mike Dean would have explained to David Moyes and others, Souček, etc., the captain. Anyway, that red card has been rescinded, rightly so. So he was available for the FA Cup tie, which was 3 days later against Manchester United, which he played in, which is good news for West Ham. And I just touched on Mike Dean, who was a referee in that game. On the back of that, he has received death threats through posts, through social media, and actually some of his family have received death threats as well on sort of social media platforms as well. So he's actually asked the Referees Association to be removed from this weekend's lot of games, and that's been granted, which everyone has an opinion on Mike Dean. He seems a really busy guy. You can see when he's on the referee, it all seems to be about him. That's the perception we get as fans, I would suggest. Obviously I don't know the geezer, but this shouldn't be happening to anybody in life, regardless of what he's like in terms of referee. Receiving death threats or issuing out a card, etc., that is outrageous. So hopefully it doesn't get any more, and that'll be the end of what we're sort of hearing in terms of that. So yeah, guys, that's all of other news. Going to move on to game week 23 results. So we kicked off the early kick-off on the Saturday, which was Aston Villa versus Arsenal. Finished 1-0 to Villa. Ollie Watkins scored really, really early on. Matt Ryan making his debut for Arsenal in goal. All accounts had a decent game. Obviously, Leno got sent off in the last game, and they don't trust Runnison, who incidentally was a signing in the summer. Yes, Ollie Watkins with a goal. Aston Villa another 3 points. Pushes them closer to the European positions, and another clean sheet. So, very, very good result for them. I actually thought Arsenal deserved something from my game. I thought Villa weren't really at it, but they've picked up. It's a sign of a good team if they're picking up threes and dubs when they're not playing well. Moving on to Burnley versus Brighton. This game finished 1-1. I didn't see it in this game. However, I thought Burnley might nick it 1-0, or one team would win it 1-0. But looking at the stats and the stats alone, Burnley had like 20 shots on goal, and maybe 6, 7, 8 of them were on target. So it seemed like Burnley had more of the possession, and well, maybe not possession, but definitely the chances. Because obviously Brighton more a possession-based team. But at the bottom of the table, I think both teams will be disappointed that they've missed out an opportunity to sort of gain obviously 3 points on their direct opponents. However, they'll be pleased that they haven't lost the game as well. Newcastle versus Southampton. Now this game finished 3-2 to Newcastle. So Maximan looked like he massively influenced the game. I think got a couple of assists. Almiron scored a goal. Callum Wilson actually got injured for Newcastle. Fabian Schär got injured as well. Hendrick got sent off. Ward-Prowse scored a free kick, which seems like the norm these days. It's a depleted Southampton at the moment, guys. Although they did have 1 or 2 players back, it still is depleted in terms of the bench and being able to change the game. So yeah, Newcastle played I think the last 20 minutes with 9 players at the scoreline being 3-2 as well. So they did tremendously well to sort of hold on and pick up a vital 3 points for them and ease the pressure on Steve Bruce a little bit. Fulham versus West Ham. This game finished 0-0. Obviously touched on the Souček red card already. Antonio picked up a bit of an injury. We think it's more of a precaution type injury. We do think it's his hamstrings. Obviously had problems with his hamstrings in the past. It could be fatigue based. We don't know. I'm sure we'll get some news in the press conference closer to the weekend's game. From Fulham's point of view, decent point, another clean sheet. I don't know if at this stage at the moment, especially their home games, are points enough. It's not getting quite to that desperate stage when they have to pick up W's, but a point against a very informed West Ham and David Moyes team, nevertheless, is a good point. And then moving on to the Saturday night game, Manchester United 3, Everton 3. Terrific game in terms of obviously goals scored and sort of big decisions and moments in the game and howlers, if you like, and we'll tackle that straight away. David De Gea has made 2 howlers in my opinion, especially the first one. He should be doing a lot better there. If he's going to parry the ball, he needs to parry out. He needs to recognise what's around him. So normally, where he has parried the ball out to Corey, wouldn't be where he's played the ball centrally would be a bad decision, which has happened, and obviously Luke Shaw's not tight to him, so therefore he's had a tap in, so he should be doing better there. He should be sort of palming that a lot further away from the goal to make it more difficult for someone to come onto. And then the third goal just needs to be more brave. We often talk about how goalkeepers mentally are different, they're different breeds, aren't they? Like, they're a bit rare in their own kind of way. He didn't show any of that. That sort of bravery there is the sort of bravery you associate with goalkeepers, and he massively lacked it there. So I'm actually, for me personally, right now as a Manchester United fan, I think it's time right now for Dean Henderson to get a run in the team. 10, 15 games, maybe De Gea gets 1 or 2 games in that period, just to ease the pressure off De Gea a little bit. And also just to see if Henderson can cope with the pressure as well before the fans get in the stadium and that pressure really starts ramping up. When obviously you know what the fans are like, they they can flip and they can be quite naive at times. In terms of the goals itself, Cavani scored, Bruno scored, obviously Calvert-Lewin scored for Everton, Decore scored, Hamilton scored. It was obviously a last minute goal for Everton, and Manchester United would feel like that's a defeat, and Everton that would feel like a win for them. Doesn't really do anyone any favours really, especially for Man United, because Man City, we'll touch on them in a moment, are obviously their direct opponents in terms of in the league and what's sort of happening there in the league. And obviously Everton, okay, they've not lost, and it's another away game which are unbeaten, which is good for them and Ancelotti, and sort of keeps them in the hunt for the European positions. Moving on to the early kick-off on Sunday, Spurs versus West Brom. Now, a surprise team selection. Harry Kane was fit, and we touched on this in the last episode. We thought he'd be out for certainly this game, possibly the midweek game which they're playing Everton in the Cup, and then definitely back for the weekend game. However, he was fit for this game, and he scored, and he was involved for Son's goal as well. So yeah, as soon as Harry Kane's back, Spurs seem to be a different animal altogether, and they picked up a nice 2-0 win, clean sheet, and they move on. Disappointing for West Brom, they never really turned up. Wolves versus Leicester finished 0-0. I'll probably say Wolves are slightly more disappointed given how the game went. I think they had the better of the chance in the moments, although Leicester had the lion's share of the possession, and obviously where they are in the table, they will be disappointed looking for them W's to put the pressure on Man United. The night before they've lost, or so they've dropped points and drawn the game. So if they did nick a win, they would have gone level with Man United in terms of points. However, they didn't happen, so a point each. And moving on to Liverpool versus Manchester City. So obviously they're the last two seasons, or last season and the season before, the champions. Liverpool last season and Man City the season before. And the game finished Liverpool 1, Manchester City 4. Now it was incredible. Firstly, the goals scored in this game. Like traditionally, there's normally not loads of goals in this game. Certainly, it's not one team massively dominant, especially the away team. And obviously, Manchester City could have scored a lot more. I mean, we touched on it. Gundogan misspent in the first half. He has gone and scored 2 in the second half. Foden scored. Sterling scored. Alisson's made 2 absolute howlers in terms of looking to play out from the back, and they wasn't even massively pressured. Like, he had a moment just before, where he gave away the ball. He almost gave away the ball. Sorry, he dwelled on possession, and he luckily sort of checked in possession and didn't lose it. But it was a moment where you don't want to lose possession there. And then, like in the next 5 minutes, he's done it twice, and Liverpool have conceded twice on the back of that, and Man City obviously scored 2. It did actually go 1-1. Salah did equalise after Gundogan had put them 1-0 up. But it wasn't really. Manchester City could have won it by more. Liverpool weren't really at it, and Liverpool haven't really been at it for the last, you could argue, maybe 2 months. Certainly the last month, 6 weeks. We know all the reasons why, guys, so we won't elaborate on that. In terms of how the league looks now, I think it's Man City now 10 points clear of Liverpool with a game in hand. So for me, if Liverpool aren't catching Manchester City, the only way that's going to happen for me is if Manchester City have a massive drop off in terms of injuries. Key players like Edison, Diaz, De Bruyne, Sterling, those types of players miss large parts of the season. So that's the only way for me that really happens. And for Liverpool, I think now their concentration should be fully on just getting back into the Champions League, i.e. the top 4. I think Klopp has come out and said that as well. So he's not beating about the bush. He's not, saying, until it's mathematically possible, we'll keep fighting, etc. A lot of managers will say that in whatever position they are in the league and whatever they're chasing. However, he's just said, like, we're not in the title anymore. We want to get top 4. It's quite refreshing to hear, actually. And he had no excuses. He did say as well, his team deserved nothing. So that's kind of the state of play in terms of those two teams. Sheffield United versus Chelsea. Finished Sheffield 1, Chelsea 2. Touched on the Rudiger own goal earlier on. That was an equalising goal. Timo Werner was involved for the first goal, the assist for Mason Mount. He won the penalty for the second goal, which Jorginho scored. And that's Tuchel's 4 games he's been in charge now, 3 wins and a draw. So he's got momentum there for Chelsea, and they've actually crept into 5th in the league now. I mean, they were down sort of in 10th, and I appreciate the league is really, really tight, so it doesn't take much to sort of gain the league positions. But nevertheless, they've put a little run together, and hopefully for their sake, they'll continue keeping that going. In terms of Sheffield, it's a difficult one because they have been in half-decent form. I touched on it last episode. They've won 3 of the last 5. And again, they've lost by a single goal, guys. I think they've lost like 10 games maybe by the odd goal this season, which is on the flip to what happened last season where they won like a high number of games by the odd goal. And then moving on to the Monday night, Leeds versus Crystal Palace. Now, Crystal Palace didn't have Zaha, and everyone knows what happens when they don't have Zaha. They struggle to get even a point, let alone win. And Leeds obviously won this game 2-0. Harrison scored a goal quite early on, a little deflection, and Gaeta had no chance, and then Bamford scored from a rebound. And it could have been more. Leeds could have been more clinical, could have scored 3-4. Nevertheless, a good sort of, getting the 3 points is obviously positive, but also a clean sheet for Leeds, which are few and far between for them. And Meslier in particular would be very, very pleased with that. Just going to go back to a new segment, which just to help people out and stuff. So obviously the transfer window has shut, so we won't be talking about that anymore. But I'm just going to sort of give a quick sort of overview and a rundown of injury news. So any injury news that's happened over the last sort of whether a week period or 3-day period, we'll sort of just give you a bit of a rundown on that. So there's been quite a few injuries since the last game week. So Sonny March has picked up a knee injury. He's going to be out for 12 weeks, which is obviously quite a big chunk of the remainder of the season. And actually he's going to need surgery as well. So he's going to be a miss for Brighton because he's been a key player in that left wing back position in terms of having a back 5 at times, and also being on transition when they can play through the thirds and be that natural left-footed player. So that's a disappointment for them. Touched on a couple of Newcastle players. Fabian Schär, he has torn his knee ligaments in the last game, and in actual fact that could actually be his last game for the club because he's out of contract in the summer, and he's going to be out for basically the rest of the season. So whether he signs a deal with the club or not, I don't know, which is obviously difficult for the Swiss international. And it's a situation where during this pandemic as well, it's difficult because does a club keep him on and say, we'll keep you on because you're going to have to go through rehab and all that kind of thing as well. Have to watch that space, and also all the Newcastle sort of outlets and channels. Touched on Callum Wilson picking up a bit of a knock. Javi Manquillo picked up an injury as well. Thomas Partey for Arsenal, he's had a reoccurrence of a thigh injury. I think that's the 3rd time since he's joined the club where he's had the same injury. Not good news for Arsenal because obviously Arsenal are a lot better team when he's in the team. And then obviously Paul Pogba, which is a blow for Manchester United because he has been playing really, really well. He's picked up a muscle injury and keep him out for 2 to 3 weeks, we suggest. Or Ole Gunnar Solskjaer will suggest, should I say. It doesn't seem like it will be too long term. However, obviously, with Manchester United's situation in terms of FA Cup and the League and the Europa League, he's going to miss quite a few games. So he might miss half a dozen games or so. So that's all the sort of injury news. It might affect some of the fantasy teams that you guys, I'm sure, will be playing. Whether it be the Sky Sports one, the Fantasy Premier League, it might be a draft form or whatever it may be. So yeah, just informing you guys of what's sort of been happening and how that could affect your fantasy teams or the teams that you might have heavy investments in. Can I have a look ahead to game week 24 fixtures then, guys? First game is an absolute crunch game. It's 3rd versus 4th, Leicester versus Liverpool. Leicester will be the favourites for this game, no doubt. They'll play their nice, progressive type of game. Will they have the Lions' own possession? I don't know, given the fact that Liverpool like to have possession. However, I do actually think Liverpool might surrender possession and hope to play in the counter-attack, which will be more space for the likes of Salah and Mane and those types of players to exploit possibly. In the reverse of this fixture, sorry, not the reverse, in this fixture last season, this was their first game back, Liverpool, after they'd been to the FIFA World Club Championships, and Liverpool won this 4-0. And obviously Leicester was sort of, I think, second in the league at the time, so it was a top table clash. And obviously Liverpool put in a bit of a clinic. Well, I dare say that won't happen this time round. Just given the form of both teams, I'll be shocked. But I think it's a good game. Obviously, Brendan Rodgers, you've got another subplot there going against his old club. Vardy's back from injury as well, so that's going to add a different element to it. Maddison and Barnes have been in terrific form along with Tielemans. Pereira's back as well for Leicester. So yeah, will Liverpool play one of those centre-backs that they purchased over the January transfer window? Yeah, it'll just be interesting to see how this game really goes. Just sort of plans out, if you like. And obviously if someone can pick up a W, it puts a dent in the other team's confidence and momentum and their obviously objectives for the season as well. Palace versus Burnley, I think it's just got a 0-0 or 1-0 written all over this, if I'm totally honest. Will Zaha be back? If he is back, then I'll probably say Palace will be favourites, albeit they are depleted in terms of the squad. And Burnley, to be fair, are likewise very, very similar. They've got a depleted squad as well. However, they have been getting some bodies back. So, yeah, we won't talk about that too much. Okay, moving on to Manchester City versus Spurs. This is a game we're talking about in terms of it being a heavyweight game or a mouth-watering game. Man City have incidentally just won their 15th game in a row in terms of the FA Cup. So they're in absolutely terrific form. Probably the most informed team in Europe. And obviously then Spurs, with Mourinho a factor as well, he's probably thinking, it's this type of game where Mourinho normally turns up for and likes to sort of break that record, and it'd be about him a little bit in terms of like, if I can stop this right, it's me kind of thing. Like it's a sort of, he's got that bit of class, arrogance, cockiness about him as well. I don't know, and obviously he backs his ability as well. I don't see it happening personally. I know Kane and Son and all these players are sort of in good form, but Man City players are in far better form, if I'm totally honest. I can see Spurs scoring. See, Man City have kept a lot of clean sheets recently, but I do expect Man City to win this, especially as they're at home. Brighton versus Villa. I think this will be another good game actually, guys, because both teams like to play. They'll definitely be expansive. I can see this being quite an end-to-end game as well. So yeah, I think it's going to be a good game from a technical point of view, a possession-based team, from a counter-attacking point of view as well. You've got two teams that are in relatively good form as well. We've got match winners for both teams as well, in terms of Grealish and Watkins for Villa. And then for Brighton, you've got Grossius playing really, really well at the moment. Mopé, Connolly, Trossard, these types of players as well. Moving on to Sunday, Southampton versus Wolves. Now Southampton, I think, are the team that are in the worst form in the Premier League at the moment. They've lost their last 5 in a row. Can they get back to winning ways? And this is probably quite a nice fixture. I think if they could pick a game, they could, home or away, this would be one of the games we would like to play because of they're at home. Wolves traditionally don't play in an expansive way, so they're going to have a lot of possession. They can try and create things, and Wolves have not been as good defensively this season. Yeah, so I think we'll leave it at that for that game there. West Brom versus Man United. Can Man United continue on their FA Cup win and keep that momentum? Obviously they need to get back to winning ways in the league and apply some pressure on Spurs, and obviously their rivals would have played before them as well in terms of the league positions. So maybe there'll be some pressure on Manchester United going in that game in terms of, if Man City go and win and say Leicester win, Man United might be down to 3rd, pressure will be on them kind of thing. And obviously from West Brom's point of view, other teams around the relegation zone would have played as well, so I suggest it'll be quite a few goals in this game. Arsenal versus Leeds, this has got a chance to be a very good basketball type game because both teams will just go for it. I can see that already. I think it's whoever defends better will probably win the game, and I'll probably say Leeds at the moment they're certainly scoring a lot of goals. Whether they're defending any better than Arsenal, probably on par, maybe a fraction worse. But I think it'll be a good game, and then another entertaining game. It won't be, teams playing behind 2 banks of 4, if you like, and playing sort of on the counter attack and that low block that everyone keeps talking about. Which, by the way, is quite an old phrase. It's just everyone seems to be jumping on it now. It's very, very old. And then you got Everton versus Fulham. Everton, in the reverse of this fixture, did really, really well. I think they won the game maybe 3. They were 3-0 up. I think it got back to 3-2. So they'll be looking to continue their form, given the fact they obviously picked up a point against Man United at Old Trafford, and obviously Fulham picked up a decent point home to West Ham the other day as well. So it's almost like a must-win game, or certainly not a lose game for Fulham. I think it's probably a W penciled in for Ancelotti and his boys. Like some managers, what they do is they look at the month's games and they say, right, we've got 7 games that month, we pick up 12 points, and they'll try and pencil in where they're going to pick up points. And this, I'm not sure if Ancelotti does this or not, I don't know, never spoke to the geezer, but he might have penciled this in as a 3-pointer, if he is thinking like that. And then we've got a couple of games on Monday. We've got West Ham versus Sheffield. Can West Ham get back to winning ways after losing in the FA Cup? And then obviously the Fulham game. Will they have Antonio back? I don't know. Sheffield United, traditionally a hard team to play against, and they never really get battered that much, should I say. I think West Ham, if Antonio's fit, they'll come out on top on that. And then we've got Chelsea versus Newcastle. Now, ordinarily I'll say this is a terrific game for Chelsea, and it'll be a comfortable-ish win, despite new manager coming in. But Newcastle seem to be playing a bit more flamboyant, a bit more expansive, a bit more attacking. Saint Maximin can sort of reproduce that form he did in the last game, and then you've also got Almiron on the top of that, and whether Callum Wilson will be fit we don't know, but if he is fit, obviously he's a massive threat. But if he isn't fit, you've got probably Joe Linton will come in there, maybe Dwight Gale, they might play a false 9, you've got Brian Fraser in there, you've got Shelvey obviously playing them passes into the attacking players, they can fizz them in and play them early when Chelsea can be disorganised on that transition. So I do think this will be a more difficult game than what actually people suggest. And obviously Newcastle would have had a fresh week as well, they wouldn't have had played. Chelsea obviously playing in the FA Cup. So yeah, that's sort of game week 24 fixtures, guys. Going to move on to Indy versus the rest of the world. Now, I did touch on last week, obviously played against Jack East, who used to be one of the old neighbours. I did say his older brother Tom would be on. However, he didn't get back to me on time, so he didn't take part. So I've drafted in someone else. I've drafted in AJ, who is another one of my brothers. I'm sure you guys would have known already. He's already participated this season once already, so he's second time this season he's getting involved. Let's just have a look how he got on earlier in the season, actually, just out of curiosity more than anything. So I played him game week 2, wasn't it? Where are we? Gone miles past it. Sorry guys, just bear with me. So game week 2, I picked up 14, he picked up 8. So if he can do better than 8, then he's done well. So we'll dive straight in. So the Villa Arsenal game, both of us went for a 2-1 win, finished 1-0, so we both picked up 2 points there. Burnley versus Brighton, we both actually went for a Burnley 1-0 win, finished 1-1, so we don't pick up any points there. Newcastle versus Southampton, I went for a 1-1 draw. He went for a 3-1 Southampton win, which was quite surprising given their form, obviously. And it finished 3-2 to Newcastle, so again, neither of us have picked up any points. Fulham versus West Ham, finished 0-0. We both went for a 2-1 win for West Ham away from home, a tight sort of victory. So again, 0 points apiece. Man United versus Everton, I went for Man United 2-1, a tight affair. He went for a 2-0, so another relatively tight affair. Obviously finished 3-3, so again, neither of us have picked up any points there. Spurs versus West Brom, both of us, quite a few of these we've gone the same, I just realised. We both went for a 2-1 win for Spurs. We thought they'd concede. I think it's because we thought Harry Kane wouldn't play and they're a bit more sort of vulnerable, if you like. I know he's an attacking player, but he offers a lot defensively as well. And obviously Spurs won this game 2-0, so we both picked up 2 points there. Wolves versus Leicester, finished 0-0. I went for a Leicester 2-1. He went for a Leicester 4-1. So 0 points apiece there. Not doing great at the moment, guys. Honestly, the points aren't really racking up. Now, I did say to AJ in this game, if this comes off, he's done brilliant. Like, it's outrageous. I thought it might have been a typo, but he said no. I went for it. So I went for Liverpool to win 2-1 because it was Anfield, and I thought maybe they'd do a job on Man City, given the fact what was on the game in terms of Liverpool's last hopes of actually winning the league this season. So yeah, I went for 2-1, and AJ went for a 6-1 win to Manchester City. I mean, when I was at 4-1, we were watching the game together, and I was like, either you're mental or you know something that no one else does on this planet. And at 4-1, I was thinking that's just nuts. Like it could happen. Like Man City had chances after 4-1 to maybe get a fifth and a sixth. You know, so he's picked up 2 points. I picked up 0 there, which is disappointing from my point of view. Moving on to Sheffield United versus Chelsea. I went for a 2-1 Chelsea, so I picked up 5. I'm really happy with that. And he went for 1-1, so it was only a goal sort of out, if you like. So he's picked up 0. I picked up 5. And then the Monday night game finished 2-0 to Leeds. I've gone for a 2-1 win to Leeds. He went for a 3-2 win to Crystal Palace. I think maybe you're thinking from the reverse fixture where Palace sort of won 4-1. So I picked up 2, he's picked up 0. So scores on the doors for the week are as follows. I picked up 11 and AJ's picked up 6 points for the rest of the world, which is not terrible, but it's not great either. I will be letting him know if he doesn't know already. So that sort of means in terms of the cumulative scores, Indy moves from 158 to 169, which is decent, so 11 points. And then the rest of the world moved from 150 to 156, there's your 6 points. So there's a 13-point cushion. So the last couple of weeks, I've picked up 3 last week against my opponent. I picked up 5 this week. I've gained, what's that? 8 points. Yeah, sorry, my maths just went there. 8 points. But then the week before that, when I played GURPS, I lost 8. So you can we're basically net. We're basically breaking even, if you like. So yeah, guys, that's Indy versus the rest of the world for game week 23. We will have a different guest on for next week. In actual fact, he's got his results in already, guys, or his predictions, should I say, in already. I won't tell you who the person is just yet, but we definitely won't have a person who's been on before. Guys, that concludes another episode of the Premier League Appetiser Show. Hope you enjoyed it. Hope you took something from it. Hope you found it insightful, and hopefully I've passed on some knowledge to you as well. Like I touched on last week, if you want to get involved for the Indy versus the rest of the world predictions, just message me, DM me privately on Instagram, Twitter, whatever it may be, even on YouTube if you want to, and even on LinkedIn. I'm sure some of you might see this on LinkedIn as well. Just drop me a message and we'll arrange something. There's still plenty of game weeks to go this season, and there might be people that drop out as well. So yeah, before you go, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel as well, guys, and we'll see everyone next week.